The next world war could begin in silence. No bombs, no gunshots, just a string of code. Imagine an AI in a fraction of a second cripples an entire nation's financial system and power grid. At that same moment, a swarm of autonomous drones, undetected and acting as one, neutralizes the enemy's naval defenses before the first human commander even knows they're under attack. This is not a scene from a movie. This is the potential battlefield of tomorrow. A high stakes technological arms race between the US and China is happening right now, and the winner might not just win the war, they could dominate the world. Hello, my name is Gene Botkin. I study technology and its effects on geopolitics, and I'm building a society for people who want to participate in the new space age. Our topic today is artificial intelligence and the role that it is likely to play in the next major world war. Let's begin. For the last 80 years, the rules of war have been relatively stable. They were written by nations with the most aircraft carriers, the biggest armies, and the most powerful nuclear arsenals. But that era is coming to an end. The new currency of global power is not steel or uranium, it's algorithms. And the critical battles of the 21st century likely will not be decided by the bravery of soldiers on the ground or the skill of pilots in the sky, but by the processing speed and learning capacity of artificial intelligence. This is the story of a new kind of arms race, one fought not in factories building tanks, but in data centers training neural networks. It is a silent, high stakes competition between the United States and China for technological supremacy. The nation that achieves a decisive lead in military AI won't just have a strategic advantage, it could have the power to fundamentally reshape the global order, to dictate the terms of peace and conflict, and to define the very future of humanity. What we are witnessing is nothing less than the dawn of algorithmic warfare. The race is on, and the outcome will determine who writes the rules for the next century. To understand the scale of the disruption we now face, we have to remember the world that is being replaced. Since the end of the Second World War, the architecture of global power has been built on a foundation of American military dominance. This was a dominance defined by overwhelming physical force and technological superiority. The symbols of this power are etched into our collective memory. The silhouette of a carrier strike group, a floating city of American sovereignty, projecting power across any ocean on Earth. The roar of a B-2 Spirit bomber, a ghost in the machine, capable of striking anywhere on the planet without being seen. The doctrine of shock and awe, a strategy designed to paralyze an adversary through a spectacular display of military might, was the ultimate expression of this paradigm. This was a world where wars were won by the side with more planes, more ships, and more advanced hardware. It was a competition measured in tonnage, in firepower, and in the industrial capacity to produce it. The United States, with its globe-spanning network of alliances and its unparalleled defense budget, was the undisputed champion of this arena. The Pentagon strategy was built on maintaining a technological overmatch so significant that no potential adversary would dare to challenge it in a conventional conflict. And for decades, this formula worked. It kept great power conflicts cold and maintained a precarious yet persistent global peace. But the very technologies that powered American prosperity, computing, networking, and data science, were quietly planting the seeds of a revolution that could make aircraft carriers vulnerable, turn fighter pilots into co-pilots, and render human reaction times obsolete. The old world order, built on the supremacy of American hardware, is about to collide with a new reality, one where the decisive weapon is not a missile, but the code that guides it. The age of physical dominance is ending, and the age of algorithmic advantage has begun. As the United States perfected the art of 20th century warfare, a challenger was quietly rewriting the rules for the 21st. China's rise is not just an economic miracle, it is a calculated and strategic endeavor to leapfrog the established powers and seize the technological high ground. Beijing understood that it would not compete with Washington carrier for carrier or plane for plane. Instead, it chose to invest in a different kind of army, one built on data, autonomy, and artificial intelligence. This strategy is known as military civil fusion. It is a whole of nation approach mandated from the very top by Xi Jinping, designed to erase the lines between the civilian tech sector and the military's demand for innovation. Unlike the American model, which often relies on contracts and partnerships with an independent private sector, China's approach is a state directed ecosystem. The government can effectively mandate that a breakthrough in a commercial AI lab be shared and adapted for military use. This policy has a single overarching goal: to transform the People's Liberation Army into a fully intelligent fighting force, and to try and establish China as the world's primary AI superpower by 2030. The results of this gambit are staggering. Recent analysis of PLA contracts shows a systematic push to develop and deploy AI for things such as autonomous target recognition and real time battlefield decision support. Chinese defense institutes are filing patents for AI driven command systems at a breathtaking rate. According to one academic paper, a system powered by a homegrown AI model called DeepSeek was able to simulate 10,000 battlefield scenarios in only 48 seconds to recommend an optimal strategy. China has doubled down on what it calls algorithmic sovereignty, a national crusade to become technologically self reliant. Recent military procurement documents show a clear preference for domestic technology, with dozens of PLA tenders reportedly requesting solutions built on that same DeepSeek AI model. Simultaneously, Chinese tech giant Huawei's AI chips are appearing more and more in military hardware as the state pressures companies to design, build, and buy Chinese. China is building a parallel technological ecosystem, one where it controls every component, from the silicon in the processors to the data used to train the models. The Dragon's Gambit is a bet that in the coming era of conflict, the nation that controls the algorithm, and not merely the alloy, will have the ultimate advantage. While the West debates the ethics of autonomous warfare, China is relentlessly building and integrating the tools for it, creating a military that thinks and acts at machine speed. The abstract concepts of AI and algorithmic warfare are rapidly taking physical form. Across the globe, in classified labs and on military test ranges, the weapons of the next war are being forged. And this new arsenal prioritizes processing power over firepower and autonomy over human control. These are not just smarter bombs, they are thinking machines designed to hunt, to track, and to kill. To begin with, let us consider the skies. The era of the human fighter pilot is coming to an end. In the United States, DARPA's Air Combat Evolution program has already made history. In tests over the California desert, an AI piloted F 16, known as the X 62 Vista, engaged in a series of visual range dogfights with an experienced human pilot in another F 16. The two jets maneuvered nose to nose, flying at speeds up to 1,200 miles per hour, with the AI making its own tactical decisions. This was not a simulation. Air Force Secretary Frank Kendall called it a transformational moment. Second, the battlefield is about to be flooded with intelligence. The age of the drone is giving way to the age of the drone swarm. The United States Army is in the middle of a massive modernization effort to field thousands of new drones and integrate them into its forces. But China is developing different and potentially more terrifying forms of this technology. Chinese research has explored concepts for a primary drone that can fragment into multiple smaller units that work together. They could communicate with each other, share data, and execute coordinated attacks from multiple directions simultaneously, overwhelming an enemy's defenses. Imagine a single threat that suddenly becomes 100, all acting with a single coordinated mind. That is the essence of China's strategy toward drone warfare. Third, and perhaps most critically, is the revolution in command and control. This is where the core philosophical difference between the US and China becomes starkly apparent. The US military is developing AI driven systems, such as the Army's Next Generation Command and Control Initiative, which can analyze vast amounts of intelligence data and recommend courses of action to a human commander. In this model, the AI acts as an incredibly powerful advisor, but the final lethal decision, the choice to pull the trigger, is always reserved for a human in the loop. Yet China's doctrine suggests a different path. PLA writings indicate a willingness to grant a much higher degree of autonomy to AI systems in combat. Their approach moves toward a human on the loop, where a person might oversee the general mission, but the AI has the authority to make its own engagement decisions in real time. This could provide a devastating speed advantage in a complex battle, but it also opens a Pandora's box of risks. What happens if the AI misidentifies a target? What happens if its communication links are severed, leaving it to operate on its own? This divergence in philosophy is a fundamental split in how the two superpowers view the role of humanity in warfare. The implications of these technologies are staggering. We are engineering machines that could make decisions of life and death in microseconds, and it raises a critical question that we all must confront. Should an algorithm ever have the final say? Should a machine, devoid of empathy or of context, be given the power to kill? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What we have discussed so far is just the hardware and the software, but the true game changer is neither the drone nor the jet. It is the invisible force that will command them all. So let us consider the question: why is artificial intelligence the ultimate trump card in modern warfare? The answer is simple and terrifying: speed. For all of human history, conflict has been bound by the speed of human cognition. A general could only process so much information. A pilot could only react so quickly. A command staff could only analyze a finite number of variables before making a decision. The entire structure of military command is built around this fundamental human limitation. Yet artificial intelligence shatters that limitation completely. Think of it like the evolution of chess. For centuries, the greatest chess masters were human. Their genius was in their ability to see several moves ahead and anticipate their opponent's strategy. Then came AI. An AI like Deep Blue or AlphaGo doesn't only see a few moves ahead. It analyzes billions of possible positions per second. It is not limited by intuition or emotion. It operates on pure, brutal probability. And no human grandmaster, no matter how brilliant, can compete with that. Now, apply that same logic to a battlefield. An AI-driven command system can process data from thousands of sources simultaneously: satellite imagery, drone feeds, electronic signals, and troop movements. It can identify weaknesses, predict enemy movements, and calculate optimal attack plans with a speed and complexity that is beyond human comprehension. The reports on China's DeepSeek AI, with its potential to run thousands of battle simulations in minutes, is a concrete example of this superhuman capability. A human staff might take weeks to wargame a single plan. The AI does it thousands of times before a person has even finished their coffee. This is the concept of the OODA loop, a military term that stands for observe, orient, decide, and act. It is the decision-making cycle of combat. The side that can cycle through the OODA loop faster gains a decisive advantage. A human pilot sees an enemy jet, orients their aircraft, decides on a maneuver, and then acts. An AI pilot does all of that in the blink of an eye. In the head-to-head tests between an AI-piloted F-16 and a human pilot, the results were a stark warning of this next paradigm shift. And so the next war will not be won by the side with the faster jet, but by the side with the faster decision-making cycle. When one side is operating at the speed of human thought, and the other is operating at the speed of light, it ceases to be a fair fight. The conflict could even be decided before the first shot is fired. The true weapon is not the autonomous drone swarm or the hypersonic missile. It is the algorithmic decider that commands them. This is the ultimate competitive advantage, and it is what both the United States and China are desperately racing to perfect. The outcome of this high-stakes technological race will define the world that our children inherit. The strategic doctrines being developed in Washington and Beijing are no longer military plans in the abstract. They are blueprints for two very different global futures. Let's project forward to the year 2035 and consider two possible worlds. In one possible future, the United States maintains its edge in the AI arms race. By leveraging its dynamic private tech sector and a software first approach, the US successfully fields a new generation of AI enabled systems that preserve its technological overmatch. In this world, the American human in the loop model becomes the global ethical standard for autonomous systems. Lethal authority remains firmly in human hands. Alliances like NATO could be strengthened by integrated AI defense networks, creating a collective security architecture that deters aggression. The world order, while radically more advanced, would retain its familiar structure, with power projected through alliances and a commitment to internationally recognized rules of engagement, now augmented by AI. But let us consider the second scenario. China wins the AI arms race. Its state-directed military-civil fusion model proves to be faster and more efficient at integrating AI across its entire military. The PLA's doctrine of granting high-level autonomy to its weapons gives it a decisive edge in speed. On the battlefield, drone swarms commanded by AI overwhelm adversaries. In this version of 2035, China's technological dominance could translate into geopolitical dominance. Its control over key supply chains might give it immense economic leverage. The human on the loop model could become the new, chillingly effective standard for warfare, forcing other nations to adopt similar methods just to compete. A potential conflict over Taiwan might serve as the first real-world test of these competing doctrines. The world order could be reshaped in Beijing's image, one defined by algorithmic efficiency, state control, and a level of surveillance that makes the 20th century look like an era of quiet anarchy. These are the stakes. The competition between the US and China is about more than novel military hardware. It is a battle between two fundamentally different visions for the future of power, control, and the role of humanity in its own conflicts. The code being written today is not just for machines. It is the source code for the next chapter of human history. And so we find ourselves at a pivotal moment. The familiar landscape of warfare, defined by soldiers, tanks, and aircraft carriers, is fading. A new battlefield is emerging, a battlefield where algorithms are the generals and the speed of light is the ultimate weapon. The war that begins in silence, the one we imagined at the start, is no longer a distant fantasy. It is the logical conclusion of the path we are on. The race between the United States and China is a frantic sprint to master a technology that could grant the winner unimaginable power. The US is betting on its open, innovative ecosystem and a philosophy that keeps humans in ultimate control. China is betting on a state-directed fusion-driven approach that prizes speed and efficiency above all else. But as both nations pour billions into this new arms race, a chorus of voices is calling for caution. In diplomatic forums at the United Nations, there are growing calls to regulate and even prohibit lethal autonomous weapons. The UN Secretary General has recommended that states conclude a legally binding instrument by 2026 to prohibit autonomous weapon systems that function without human control. There is a deep and growing anxiety that we are building something we can no longer oversee, delegating the most consequential human decision, the decision to take a life, to a machine that has no understanding of its value. The race is on, and we, the public, are largely spectators. So the final question is this: what happens when these autonomous weapons, designed to be perfectly logical, encounter a situation that is perfectly human and irrational? And who is held accountable when the algorithm gets it wrong? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time. With Eleonarda, this has been Gene Botkin. End transmission.